I mean, whatever. All right. So, let me put this up here. Ooh, fancy. All right. So today, I want to chat a little bit about HTML. So the prerequisites for doing this stuff is you need a text editor of some type and a browser. Or alternatively, create an account with CodePen. Does not take very long, and it's very easy to use. It's a quick way of putting together some stuff to show to somebody, or just to do it fast without having to worry about like a code editor and a browser and all this other stuff. So it's your choice which one you want to do when you're coding along with this one. Obviously, when you're doing more advanced things, you're going to want to move to a text editor. My choice right now is Visual Studio Code, but you can use Sublime Text, Atom, or any other ones, Vim. I don't know. There's all kinds of them out there. And then, of course, a browser. I would prefer that you use Chrome or Firefox, just because their developer tools are a lot better. And then, of course, like I mentioned, CodePen. So welcome to What the HTML, an introduction to the hypertext markup language. Fun fact, hypertext basically just means beyond text. So a little bit of background. So hypertext markup language was created by this guy to connect the entire world. Well, not really. His whole plan initially was to try and talk to other computers that were working at CERN at the time in 1980. But of course, it's exploded since then, and I'm talking to you now over HTML. It's crazy. So, first thing I want to point out is markup language does not equal a programming language. So despite what you think, this is not, you're not programming if you're writing HTML. Markup language, as stolen from this example, is used to control the presentation of data. So it's a way of giving meaning to information. That's why it's hypertext, because it takes regular text and gives it a purpose. Like, this has a particular meaning. And then a programming language is used to transform data. So it takes that data and it does something with it, whether it be, fetching from a database or collating or, something. It requires a CPU instruction to rewrite it, right? So why do I care about any of this? That is a good question. Well, history, it's important or something. I don't know. For me, everything boils down to understanding how it works. So if you understand why HTML was created and how it works, it'll make everything after that so much easier. And as I mentioned, it's the foundation of the web. So, even 40 years later, every website from Facebook to farmersonly.com is using it. And as I mentioned, it provides the meaning for the website. It gives it its purpose, its underlying context for every piece of text that's on there. Yeah, all right, so how does it work? Well, the internet is composed of rectangles stacked on top of each other, stacked next to each other, comprised of each other. So from here on out, whenever you're working on a website, just think about it in that context. And this extends to almost every kind of digital media, going along. Like, everything is made up of boxes. All right, so HTML is composed of tags, element tags. Well, they're tags, but they're called elements. So you got those two little brackets that enclose a tag or an element. And the example I see is, HTML. This is like the highest level tag. And as I mentioned with the rectangles, everything is made up of nested elements. So this is what a basic HTML page looks like. I'll go through a much more advanced one earlier when we were going through the debugging section. So we got top level HTML. Directly below that, so as I mentioned, everything is nested. So top level, nothing will ever go outside of this top level HTML. Within that, you have your head tag, and within your head tag is all of the information about the website that does not get displayed to the user. So your title, this is where this comes from. Every website on the planet, if it's a good one, has a title tag that tells the browser what to display here. And then within that is the body. So this is the user, this is what a user sees when they're opening it up in a browser. So all this information that we're seeing right here, this is within the body tag. And there's a bunch of different tags that go within that. So nested, and then nested. And you often hear the term parent and child. So this is a child of this. So this is the parent to this, because we need words to explain things. Oops. All right, so there's different types of elements. There's block level elements, and then there's inline elements. Yeah, so a block level element takes up the entire space, one rectangle, right? And then an inline element takes up this much space. It only takes up the amount of space that is required to display the information. So going back to this, so there's a ton of different block level elements. P tags, these are all heading tags from H1 through 6. This varies in importance. Unordered list, ordered list, a div, as you saw on the other one. So then if you want to make things italic, abbreviate something, have an acronym, make it strong, throw an image in there, spans, buttons, inputs, all kinds of stuff. Those are all inline. So again, div takes the whole space, inline only takes this much space. And I'll show you more when we do the example. So within an HTML tag, there can be a bunch of attributes. And this is a way for JavaScript and CSS, the style, to do something with it. It knows more information about it. So in this case, we have our p tag that's within brackets, and then in addition to that has an attribute of class, of classy. Or it has an attribute of class with a property of classy. Makes sense. Okay. Yes, I know I'm yelling at myself with my own presentation, but I get it. So let's just code. But first, I want you to meet your new nemesis, and that is Internet Explorer. It may look familiar. You might have seen it on your favorite Windows computer or device. It thinks it's the smartest around, and it is not your friend. The reason for this is because there's been a long history of browsers. There's been browser wars, believe it or not. If you don't believe me, look it up. And it behaves a little bit differently than our friends Chrome and Firefox. So you may be using Chrome, but the people that are looking at your websites might be using Internet Explorer. So yeah, that's something you have to think about. Yeah, so then, all right, let's go code. Okay, so CodePen, as I mentioned, is a way to quickly create something without having to worry about putting it on a server and being able to share it with somebody or whatever. As you can see, there's just like tons and tons of stuff in here. Holy crap, there's some amazing stuff on here, right? So like somebody created this. What is this? Somebody created this entirely with HTML, CSS. That's interesting. And that's just like crazy. Let's look at this. Wow. Interesting. Whatever. Okay. So, I mean, if you just want to like look around at some cool freaking products, it'll show you. Okay. So, assuming that you've created an account, or if you don't want to and you're just going to code in code editor, that's cool. So let's create a new pen. So as I mentioned, we're not going to be using CSS, and we're not going to be using JavaScript. Excuse me. So as I mentioned, every HTML page starts with HTML tag. Now, a handy tool inside of CodePen, but also a lot of code editors, is tab auto-completion. So the code editor or CodePen will recognize what language you're working in, especially in CodePen, because it knows exactly which language you're working in, and will allow you to autocomplete. So again, I just have to type the tag that I want, press tab, it'll complete it for me. Now as you notice, there's a start tag, and then there's an end tag. For the most part, with a few exceptions, every HTML tag has an opening and a closing bracket. That's how the browser knows what's nested inside of it. Obviously, for some of those inline elements, that doesn't count, such as images and inputs. So within our HTML, the first thing we want to do is create a head element. Now again, this is not going to show up to the user directly. However, there is useful information in here that I'll show you later. So one of them, title tag, we're going to call this LaserCat. And then below the head is the body tag. So this again is where all user information, or all the information that gets displayed to the user is going to show up in the body tag. So the first thing we want to do, let's create an H1. So H1 is the most important heading of the document. So let's say LaserCat girl. Now, every browser has like standard styling to show importance, like it's a cat. Make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, man. A little bit smaller. Yeah. And then the other ones are probably the same, H5 and H6. So as you can see, it gets a little bit smaller. So as mentioned, like this is the most important visually, and also for when a browser is looking at your website. This is the most important information for this particular block, right? All right. So the next thing, let's put in a P tag, which is a paragraph tag. So this is my cat. He shoots lasers. Pew pew. Cool. And then let's go ahead and put an image in here. So complete the image. Now you'll see this is a first tag that has auto-completed with two attributes, source attribute and an alt attribute. So the source attribute tells it where to get the image from. So let's go find an image. LaserCat. I like this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, copy image address. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to copy it in there. And then alt text, LaserCat. So alt text, this is very important for anybody that's working on WordPress or any other like CMS that asks for alt text for whenever you're doing images. Well, I mean, it's important for everybody, but oftentimes I will be working on a project and there'll be no alt text on anything. The issue with this is if a screen reader is going through your page and it gets to an image, you can't read the image, so it defaults to the alt text. So it'll go down my page and it'll say LaserCat. In this case, what's going on here? It's not showing the image. That's interesting. Oh my gosh. Copy image address. I'll try a different one. copy image address. Maybe there was something wrong with the link. There we go. Well, that's kind of a good example though. So like if the image fails, that's what's going to show up in its place. Right? So like LaserCat. So you know there's supposed to be an image here, but if not, it defaults to that. Oops. Okay. So LaserCat. All right. So that's our image. Now you'll notice, well, it's not too big, but I think it's a little too big. So let's change the size. So width, 200 pixels. Tiny. And then that's too small. Let's just go back to the original size. So in case you didn't figure it out, width is an attribute which controls the width of this image. This is not an ideal way of controlling the image. You should do it with CSS, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to leave it at that. All right, so then moving on, let's put another paragraph tag down here. We're going to say, let's do this first. H2, want to know more? Yeah, of course I want to know more. Go here. Now I want here to go somewhere, so I have to wrap this in an A tag. And to be honest, I don't remember what the A stands for. So let's go look it up. What does A stand for in HTML? Anchor, right, okay. Defines a hyperlink. So again, hypertext, hyperlink, whatever. Anchor. But we want it to go somewhere, so let's go back to the internet. LaserCat. And then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to try and find a post. Sure, why not? This one. Oh no. Well, that link sucks, so we're not going to use that one. LaserCat YouTube. Cool. Oh my god. Okay. So then, put a link in there. However, we have to move this. So I'm going to Command X, Command B, put it in there. Now, as you see, basic styling, gets an underline, turns it blue. And if I click on it, it's going to take this page internally and try and take it there, which is not what I want. So we need to add one more attribute. Let's move this down a little bit. Okay. Let's make one more attribute of target, and the value is going to be blank with an underscore. Now if I click this, it takes us to a new page. If you haven't watched that, it's ridiculous and great. 80s Hamburger is the best. All right, so that is the basics of HTML. So for the next stream, I'm going to do some more advanced HTML stuff, as well as I'm going to get started with some CSS stuff. However, before we do that, I want to show you a couple more things. Oops. Oh yeah, so how can I show this sweet website to everybody? This is one of the reasons why I said start with CodePen, because, I mean, once you save this, it's going to give you a unique link, and then you can just show all your friends this sweet website that you made about LaserCats. Outside of that is a little bit more advanced for what we're talking about. You know, you have to put it on a server, or, you know, something like that, whatever. We'll deal with that later. But I want to show how to debug. Okay? So I would say 90% of being a web developer is learning how to debug. So what I do, let's just go to a website, right? I like this one because it's actually going to yell at you when you do this. Let's not go to Facebook. Let's go to, well, let's just go to google.com and then search for it. Let's see what this is about. All right. So within Chrome, Firefox has something similar, and so does Internet Explorer. But within Chrome, go up to View, go up to Developer, and Developer Tools. And it's going to come up with this. Yours may look a little bit different. I have a dark theme in here because I don't like staring at immense whiteness all day. But it's going to show you over here in the Elements section everything that's within the website. So moving past my simple example, you'll see everything is contained within HTML. Top, bottom. And then within that is their head and your body. And again, the head has all kinds of stuff. So this meta content gives the browser and Google, when it searches for your website, information about what it is. Script tag runs some JavaScript. You'll see some crazy stuff in there. Some style tag. I mean, this is all CSS, but it's minimized and crazy looking. Let's see. And then a bunch of links to external stuff. So this is where you import your fonts and all kinds of crap. So that's it for the head tag. And then within the body, so like I said, everything's made of rectangles. Let's see if, where is it? All right, so that's a rectangle. That's a rectangle. So let's look. Almost every website has a main portion where all the information goes, i.e. like this stuff, you know, the content, in either a div or a main element called main or container or something like that. This is chosen by the person that builds it. It's not like a standard. You can call it whatever you want. But within this is where all the stuff is. Easter egg. What's going on in here? And then they have another container, right? So then there's more stuff. Right? All kinds of stuff. And then within here. And then within here. Right? So it's just nested, 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 nested. And all this is controlled with CSS to make it look a specific way, but everything is nested. And you can feel free to go through all that stuff at your leisure. But when you're debugging, it allows you to look at, well, let me do this. Oops. I'm going to pull in a example. Okay, so this is like a version. So you'll see all that stuff that I did shows up over here. So I'm like, okay, but, you know, and I also added an italic. Like, how come this isn't working? So like you can go in here and you can test it out. Like, I want it to be 400 pixels. That's too small. I want it to be 2,000 pixels. Or 20,000. That's just ridiculous. I want it to be 100%. Wow. There's lots of different things you can do that. And I will go over CSS later. So you can go through here and you can look at the website in here. So like I said, head, title, our first website shows up here. Cool. All right. So now, do you feel like Hacker Man? I do, every single day. So let's talk about some resources. As far as learning goes, these two books, 3 books actually, are the gold standard as far as learning stuff. It'll tell you everything and anything you need to know. about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's a great place to start. W3 Schools is a great place for reference. Wonderful place. I mean, you have all kinds of stuff. Now, I don't think I've ever actually used any of this because my degree was based around this, so I had people teaching me, but I'm sure these are great tutorials as well. What else we got? So for troubleshooting, Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a interesting place where you can go and ask any question in the world in regards to building websites, applications, code, just anything programming related. They also have jobs. So you just create an account, and if you need to ask questions, just ask questions. Now, I would say, well, I've never asked a question on Stack Overflow. I've always Google searched it because for the most part, anything that you need to do, someone has asked that question before. You just need to look for the most up-to-date information. And then, of course, like I said, the Googs. Now, 9 times out of 10, that's going to point you to a Stack Overflow page that has the answer. All right, so that is pretty much it. Hopefully you'd enjoyed this and hopefully you learned something. The next week or so, I'm going to, well, I'm going to go over more HTML and CSS. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I hope to see you then.